I don't have my piece of paper that I always wave around in these videos.
How are we going to have the video without the piece of paper?
I don't know. Hello, welcome back to Real People. This is episode 3. I'm joined today by Haley Mills. I'm your host, Sam Elkins. This week we will be talking about El Camino, the Breaking Bad film that just came out on Netflix recently. This is going to be kind of a special little video. The spoiler-free section of the video will not be spoiler-free for Breaking Bad, the show, but it will be spoiler-free for the movie El Camino. So if you haven't gone through Breaking Bad, the show, and you want to watch this video, don't watch this video if you care about spoilers. The fun part about this video is I've watched Breaking Bad like multiple times. I was very excited for this movie to come out. She has not seen
When
anything.
I was trying to watch the movie, I accidentally clicked on the pilot episode.
No
so
way.
I watched the first 3 minutes before I realized it wasn't the movie.
Anyway, so this is Real People. This is the show where I have real people on the show and we just talk about movies we've seen. Just before we get into it, El Camino. This is coming off of the season finale of Breaking Bad. Immediately after is when it starts. We follow Jesse Pinkman, played by Aaron Paul, as he escapes from the cage that he was being held in by white supremacists. You know, spoilers for Breaking Bad, not for El Camino. If you're watching El Camino, you've probably seen Breaking. Well, maybe not, but that's okay. Walter White ends up getting shot himself, saving Jesse Pinkman. See, this is news to her. She didn't even watch the recap before watching the movie, so that's okay. That's okay. But first things first, I thought the film, for its runtime, felt pretty brisk. It didn't seem to drag for me. How did you feel?
No, yeah, that's how I felt too. Like every second, it felt like there was something happening or it was preparation for something happening.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel like I was like sitting around like waiting for any like character development to happen.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably because all of the development happened in the show.
Mm-hmm.
But I like even not having the background
Mm-hmm.
of the characters, like while it was like, you know, brisk and they didn't like go into a lot of detail, you could like I felt like I could still get to know them just based on their like interactions with each other.
Yeah, exactly. They did a real good job for anybody like her who might watch the film not having watched any of the show. Which is interesting because like they didn't need to do that because anybody who hasn't watched the show probably wouldn't have an interest in watching the movie.
Yeah.
But they did a good job of making it interesting for new and old and returning fans.
Yeah.
It wasn't exactly necessary, and for Breaking Bad fans, you know, the finale of Breaking Bad, and in my opinion, is the best season finale or series finale of any show.
It didn't like drag on.
No, it didn't, and it did really well.
Do you feel like the movie like dragged it on any, or it was like a good addition to the ending?
I think it was a really good addition. The way I've been kind of comparing it to some people who haven't seen it is it's almost like a Toy Story 4. It's like Toy Story 3 wrapped up the trilogy really well, and it was really beautiful. And then you're like, okay, Toy Story 4 comes along, like, why is this happening? Then you watch it, and like, that did something that I didn't expect to want to happen. But you know, the way Breaking Bad leaves off, you know, Jesse's out in the wind. You don't know what's going on with him. So I think this was a nice resolution to his character.
From like the start of the movie, it's like I just felt like Jesse needed to be just like hugged by lots of people.
Yeah.
And just like loved.
Yeah. You know, I think he deserved that, like an ending in general.
Yeah. I was just like kind of like on the edge of my seat the whole time. Just like it's like at any moment like something either like really good or really bad could happen. And I felt like you didn't know which way it was gonna go. Like the whole film, like anything that happened.
That's something that also was kind of the way that Breaking Bad went too as a show. Like a lot of things was like you don't know how certain situations are going to play out. So that ends our spoiler-free section of the El Camino review. Just a reminder, in case you're just now joining us for some reason, we are still doing spoilers for Breaking Bad, and now we are also doing spoilers for El Camino.
All the spoilers.
All the spoilers.
Yes.
All for you. Okay, so specific things. Tension-wise, the standoff scene. I really enjoyed the fact that they showed you that he grabbed 2 guns, and then you're like, oh, where's the second one? He shot through his coat pocket. Then I realized, oh, no, that's where the second one is. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. In that moment, it was just kind of like, yes, like, you know, he kind of finally wins something.
Yeah. Yeah, that was definitely a sentiment that I felt as well. And it really felt like a nice character moment as well. Just the fact that whole idea was the welder's idea.
Yeah, and then Jesse ends up being like, well, now you're dead.
Yeah,
So.
exactly. Which, it was really interesting because throughout the show Breaking Bad, Walter White was like a master manipulator.
Okay.
And he, one of his quotes is, I'm in the empire business as opposed to the drug business or the money business.
Yeah.
And he was building an empire, and in order to do that, he manipulated so many people, especially Jesse. It's kind of really cool to see Jesse use that to liberate himself.
Yeah, no, it felt like in that moment that, because kind of like, I felt like the whole film, Jesse was maybe like a little like unsure of himself and what the next move was going to be, probably because he was unsure what his next move was going to be. But then like in that moment, it's like he came in and he knew what he was going to do.
Yeah.
And he did it.
Yeah. And then once the idea of the Mexican standoff was brought up, you could see on his face, he was like, yeah, no, I'm ready for this. And he was like, are you ready? He said, yeah. And I thought that was really cool because, one, it's telling you Jesse knows what he's doing in this moment. You can see in his eyes that he knows he's going to win this battle. 2, it reflects his liberation. He finally feels that he's going to be able to, he finally has hope that he's going to be able to be free. And he feels sure of himself that he can get himself at that place. Jesse in Todd's apartment, ripping through it. Trying to find the money.
And then when he finally finds it, and then he hears the people.
Yeah, the 2 police officers.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really cool moment because that's the kind of intensity that you expect going into an episode of Breaking Bad. And that was so heightened. And then that moment when he's holding one guy hostage, and then he calls out, hey, Lieutenant, then the other guy's like, you can see in his eyes that he's like,
he
okay.
knows. And
something's wrong. He pulls out his gun.
And maybe people who had seen Breaking Bad, did you guys know they weren't police officers?
No.
Okay. So, I mean, I thought that when he was holding one of them hostage, and then he called out, like, hey, Lieutenant, I thought that was, like, a code they had.
Yes.
Maybe, like, a police code,
yes.
like, calling someone by the wrong rank.
That's exactly
and so you know that they're in danger.
Yeah.
And I was like, ooh, that's so smart. Like,
yeah.
And then...
Because that makes sense. I thought the exact same thing, because that's something that I feel like is very plausible.
Yeah.
Because that situation it's a trope you see in a lot of films, so it would make sense for, a police officer to, like, have that, if I say, hey, Lieutenant, it means I'm in trouble.
Yeah. And then just, I feel like they did that scene really well, too, because... It's just like the one is like slowly creeping towards where Jesse's holding one of them hostage.
Yeah.
And just the whole time, he has his weapon drawn, and you're just like, ooh, what's gonna happen? Like, who's gonna shoot who? Like, when is this gonna happen? I feel like once Jesse knew who they were, he was almost more afraid. It's like that's what it looked like.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
especially, well, that was also because they were hog tying him.
Yeah, because I think, one, he kind of, gave up, like, his weapon and stuff. I think that maybe he felt, like, a little bit of peace, because he's like, okay, like, at least these are, like law enforcement
Yeah.
officers, like, I might be going to jail, but
Yeah.
like, maybe there's a chance.
Yeah.
And then as
I'm
soon
a white man, so I'm not going to be
yeah,
shot.
exactly. And then as soon as they don't have handcuffs, and then he's like, you guys aren't police officers. Like, I feel like that moment he's just like, everything I just like worked to get out of, like, I'm gonna have to go back there.
Yeah, and I really appreciated another thing I really appreciated as well, going back to the code Hey Lieutenant, is going back and watching that scene a second time, knowing that they're not police officers. It makes even more sense why him saying Hey Lieutenant is like, oh, there's somebody else in there that thinks that we're police officers that he can't talk about, because there's no reason for him to call him lieutenant when it's just
they're not police. Yeah, it was just them two.
Yeah, exactly.
And that would make watching that scene, it's like he, it takes him several times of his partner calling him for him to like really understand, and then that's when he draws his weapon and he's like just being extra careful, and he probably has like no idea what's coming on the other side. I also liked during that, just like the ending, like the flashback at the end, and again, because I haven't seen the show, like just between Jesse and the girl. And you could tell that was like a really positive memory for Jesse, and maybe not, but like at that time, it seemed really positive, and I think that just showed how, even though like that moment wasn't the same, like this is like the best ending that Jesse could have asked for.
Yeah, exactly, because that shows him. So a lot of the flashbacks were showing where Jesse has been, and then it's contrasted by where he is now. And I thought that they did a really good job of capturing that, because in that moment he was like, I was thinking about when you said, just go where the universe takes you. And she's like, that's horrible advice. She's like, you make your own future. Yeah. And then he just like, oh, okay. But like at that time he was very impressionable, very easily manipulated, I think, or just very impressionable, and he was thinking, just letting the universe take him wherever, just trusting that it would get him to a right place. But that led him to be locked in a cage, and so now
and he had to work to get to like the freedom.
Also, Walter White's return was really nice. It was a really nice flashback. Bryan Cranston fit back into that role like a glove. It was like he never left. That was really impressive. They both did, obviously. Aaron Paul's performance was incredible. But I really enjoyed that. I thought their conversation was really nice. You could also see more of that kind of theme of manipulation. If you notice, Walt is like, what do you want to do? And Jesse's like, sports medicine. He's like, okay, what about business? You're good. And he starts talking like, you're good at these things. These are things that you should be doing. Almost convincing the audience, too.
Yeah, well, and just like he degrades Jesse so much. You can go get your GED.
Yeah.
Well, I graduated.
Yeah.
It's like Walt didn't even, one, know that.
Yeah.
Or two, think that Jesse could have done that.
No, he did know that, because he was like, you were on stage when they handed me the diploma.
Yeah, wait.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like almost like, it's like Walt manipulating him again to just like feel like he has no power.
It was really an interesting development of the theme of manipulation. And Jesse breaking free from other people trying to influence his life and taking control of his own life. I thought that was really nice.
Could you say that Jesse was breaking from the bad?
That's all the time we have today, folks. Thanks for watching. So that is all the time we have today for episode 3 of Real People. Tune in next week. I will be reviewing Zombieland Double Tap, which I am very excited for. So definitely check that out. I've been Sam Elkins, and this has been the lovely host,
It's my show now.
This has been our lovely guest, Haley Mills. Thank you for being on the show. You can catch all these episodes, if you want to watch any other episodes, on their YouTube channel. That is TMN Television. So check them out. Peace.